Before we get into this video, if you could just hit that subscribe button down below, it would mean a massive amount to me, but without further ado, let's get into it. So today's video is another transfer video, and I thought I'd make it because we've changed systems basically. If you missed my video on that, that will be linked in the cards above, and I explained Jesse Marsch's general tactics. So we've changed system and we don't tend to play with wide wingers anymore. We now tend to play with a double pivot as well in midfield. So with that in mind, and the fact that we might play two strikers, I've come up with a list of 3 players who I think, if we sign them in the summer, will be 1, realistic at a reasonable price, and 2, could actually improve our squad, especially with the way that Jesse Marsch wants to play. So let's get straight into it. So the first one is pretty obvious, and that is Brenden Aaronson. Now, Brenden Aaronson was obviously linked in January. We tried to bid for him a couple of times and was rejected. So I think in the summer, it's going to be around the price of £25 million for him. 20 to £25 million for Brenden Aaronson. And I think that is a fair price given the quality of player he is and the potential he has to become an absolute star. So let's get into some of his statistics. So Brenden Aaronson has scored 3 goals and got 6 assists this season, easy for me to say, in all competitions. There is more detail from Brenden Aaronson in the full video I made in January, which will obviously also be linked in the cards above. So if you want to check that out, I would advise doing that. But this one, I'm going to compare him to our other attacking players to make it a little bit more interesting and to kind of show you more how he would fit into our side and what he would look like in terms of ranking above our other players. So the first thing I'm going to say is absolute pressing monster with 26 pressures per 90 in the UCL 2021-2022. So in the group stage in the 2 games against Bayern in the round of 32 or the round of 16, can't remember which one it is. Either way, 26 pressures per 90. Now let's compare that to Leeds players. Rodrigo, 15 pressures per 90. So already 11 pressures more per 90 than Rodrigo. Rafinha, 15.5 pressures per 90. Harrison, 17.5 pressures per 90. And Dan James, 20 pressures per 90. So even Dan James, who you think, God, he presses a lot and he absolutely runs his pan out trying to press down keepers, centre-backs, going across the line to try and press people. He's only got 20 per 90. And Brenden Aaronson has 26 pressures per 90, and that's measured in the Champions League, of course, which is probably a higher opposition than what he'd be playing against in his domestic league. So that speaks volumes about the kind of work rate that he has, which obviously is fantastic for our team. The second statistic I'm going to compare to our attacking players is his shot creating actions. Now, a shot creating action is either the pass that goes to the person who has the shot or the action before that. So that could be the player who passes it to the assister of the shot, or the player who wins a free kick, which is then whipped in and results in a shot. So it's the two moves that lead to a shot. So it's basically a good measure of how involved in attacking play somebody is and how many chances they create. So Brenden Aaronson has 2.5 shot creating actions per 90 in the Champions League 21-22 season, which, like I say, again has to be caveated by the fact he's playing against better opposition than he usually would be in his domestic league. So when we look at Aaronson, he ranks 4th in the list of our shot creating actions per those players we've already measured against this season. So Rafinha has 4.09 shot creating actions per 90, which is excellent. Rodrigo has 3.26, Harrison 3.15, Aaronson 2.52, like I say, again, measured in the Champions League because the Austrian Bundesliga doesn't have as detailed statistics readily available. And Dan James has 2.09 shot creating actions per 90. So he's in the mix. He's not massively off the pace, but he's not leading the pack by any means. But like I say, again, Champions League. So he could come into the Premier League, and against your lower teams, he could perform a lot higher than that 2.52 shot creating actions per 90. So in general, I think that Brenden Aaronson would fit really well into the system. He already knows how Jesse Marsch plays because he's played under him before, RB Salzburg. He knows what the system is. He knows when and when not to press. And so I think he would be a really, really good signing under Jesse Marsch and definitely would develop well. The second player I'm going to have a look at is an alternative to Boubacar Kamara. Now, Boubacar Kamara was linked in January as well, and in the summer, I think. But Boubacar Kamara comes at a higher price than this guy, and he also was rumoured to have started asking for 150k a week when Manchester United came sniffing around him at Marseille. So I've gone for an alternative option, and that is Khéphren Thuram. Now, you may recognise that last name, and that is because he is the son of Lilian Thuram, the ex-French international. Now, Khéphren Thuram is a holding midfielder, so as I talked about in the intro, that two pivots in the number 6 roles, if you will, the two holding midfielders. We've only really got Calvin, who's an out-and-out holding midfielder, so this guy looks like a really, really good person to bring in. Granted, he's playing in the French league with OGC Nice, but he has had 3 goals and 3 assists in all competitions this season, for which for a holding midfielder is pretty good, and you're going to find out from his statistics in a second that it's because he likes to progress the ball. So what we're going to do again is compare him to a current Leeds player. So we're going to compare him to Calvin Phillips. Now, obviously Calvin Phillips hasn't played much this season, so we're going to compare him to the statistics throughout last season. So let's first have a look at progressive carries. Now, progressive carries are defined as when a player picks up the ball, if they carry the ball more than 10 yards vertically towards the opposition's goal, that is counted as a progressive carry. So it's basically a way of saying this guy dribbles towards goals, he makes things happen. So let's have a look at Phillips first. Phillips in 2020-21, progressive carries 2.2 per 90, and Thuram 5.9 per 90 this season, which is massive compared to that. Now, when you're playing a double pivot, it's likely that one will stay whilst the other one supports the attacking midfielders a little bit more. So whilst Phillips sits in or Thuram sits in, the other one can go and the other one can be a bit more progressive. So I think that's probably what's happened with Thuram this season, and I think it would definitely benefit Calvin to have somebody alongside him with that sort of experience of doing that. Now, he's only 20 years old, which I forgot to mention there. He's 20 years old, so he has great potential. His progressive passes now. So progressive passes, much like progressive carries, are passes that go more than 10 yards in a vertical direction towards the opposition's goal. And I think it also has to be in the opposition's half as well. So it's very similar with Phillips and Thuram, which obviously shows that he's got great distribution. Phillips with 3.85 per 90 last season, and this season Thuram with 3.9, so it's just higher. So very similar, but also it shows the kind of passing range and the kind of idea and the kind of thrust he has to try and take it forward straight away. The last one I'm going to mention is interceptions. Now, I mention interceptions because it's very important for a holding midfielder to break up the play, and the way we want to play on the counter-attack, springing counter pressures, is that we want to intercept the ball, break up the play, and go again. So last season, Phillips 1.8 interceptions per 90. Thuram this season 2.7 interceptions per 90. Now, as Thuram is better than Phillips in every stat here, it sounds like I'm saying that Thuram is a better player than Calvin Phillips. By no means is Thuram a better player than Calvin Phillips. There could be some factors here that play into this. A, the system he plays in and the role he's being asked to do. And B, he's playing in a worse league in terms of the standard. But having said that, I think you can still take a baseline idea of what sort of player Khéphren Thuram is from these statistics. You can see that he wants to progress the ball and that he wants to carry the ball as well. But the third thing is his interceptions. He also is good at breaking up the play. So he's the all-round package in terms of potential to be a really, really great holding midfielder. So he's definitely one to watch. Now, the last one I'm going to mention is Jonathan Burkhart. Now, he is playing in the Bundesliga for FC Mainz. Now, he is 21 years old and has 9 goals this season from a non-penalty XG of 9.2. So he's pretty bang on. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to compare him to Patrick Bamford of last season to see what sort of player he is. So, what's he like compared to Patrick Bamford then? Well, first we're going to look at pressures because the striker needs to press in our system. So, last season, Patrick Bamford, 17.87 pressures per 90. Jonathan Burkhart, this season, 16.87. So, just 1 less pressure per 90, which is a pretty good statistic for a striker. Obviously not as much as the likes of Brendan Aronson that we were looking at earlier, but he does like to press, and obviously it depends on the system he's playing. He could press more if Jesse Marsch is asking that of him. So obviously he's got the capability to work hard for the team. We can see that through that statistic. Now, shot creating actions, which I mentioned earlier with the explanation. Per 90, Bamford last season, 1.77. Burkhart this season, 2.45. So he's actually leading Bamford in the shot creating actions tally this season. So that obviously shows that he's involved in a lot of attacking play, like creating chances and having the shots himself. Now, I worked out the conversion rate as well, because a big thing about Bamford that people have complained about over the years is his conversion rate. Last season, though, he was a lot more prolific, and he scored a lot more goals than he usually does. So, conversion rate for Bamford last season, which I have worked out, is that he scored 17 goals from 105 shots, which works at 16.19% goal conversion rate. Burkhart this season, 9 goals, 55 shots, 16.36%. So there's nothing in it. Their conversion rate is pretty much bang on the same. And so obviously that shows that he's a good striker playing in the Bundesliga, which is one of the best leagues in Europe, and he's converting his chances. And if he's converting his chances at the same rate of Bamford, and you could play them both together, then I think that could be a lethal strike force. Like I said, he's only 21 years old, so he's got the potential to be the future of international German football and the future of the Premier League in terms of strikers. If he was to come to the Premier League, he's got that high ceiling that he could really come into his own, especially in this system. That's going to be it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed this more statistical breakdown of these players, and I think it's kind of better to compare them to our current players. So when I throw stats at you, it's not just these are the statistics, it's this is how it compares to our current players, so you can get more of an idea of what he would look like in our system. So yeah, like I say, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, leave a like below, comment down below if you can think of any more players that would really fit this new Jesse Marsch system, and if not, I shall see you in the next video. Thanks for watching this one.